But Brandon, it's time to talk about a program you love to talk about, mainly because of their head coach. And really, I'm going to step aside from Brandon. Brandon is now leaving the podcast room, and I'm talking to Ed Orgeron here. And Ed, how you doing today?
Not too good. We just lost to Troy.
I can tell you're not doing too good.
No, I didn't get my 24 donuts the other day, so I don't think I'm. This just hasn't been a good week. If you know what I'm saying.
But the reason why Ed Orgeron may not be was great impression by Brandon Swanson. Got to get.
I tried. I don't know. I don't know if it is. I don't know if it isn't.
The one thing I saw that made me completely crack up is someone played a clip of Ed Orgeron, and then played a clip of the overall coach from the Waterboy.
Yes.
Sounds exactly the same.
Yes.
Sounds exactly the same. But the reason why Ed Orgeron may not be too happy after this week, Brandon, because a little bit of fun facts here on the Primetime Podcast is, do you know, because LSU lost this past Saturday, do you know offhand how much money LSU now has to pay Troy?
$600,000.
$985,000 to lose because they lost to Troy. And you know what the best part of all of it was? The Troy University at Troy U News, their Twitter account, after the game tweeted out, "Hey, at LSU, thanks for having us down for homecoming. We really enjoyed it." Smiley face emoji. Absolutely loved it. But Brandon, what we are talking about today, mainly because of this loss, but not entirely because of this loss, LSU has not been good this season. We could also have this conversation about Tennessee, but we're going to leave that to another day. Ricky does not need to get a ton of hate from Tennessee fans for saying Butch Jones. The comment section keeps saying Bitch Jones. It's just going into my head.
You don't need to get any more hate from Tennessee fans because they already hate you.
Although I think me and Tennessee fans might be on the same page with that. Like I said, they're in our comment section calling him Bitch Jones, not Butch Jones. But I'm going to ask you about LSU. Is it time for them to move on from Ed Orgeron? Is this the last season where it's like, you know what, Ed, it's been great, but goodbye?
No, not at all. I mean, the guy's barely been there 5 minutes. I don't think there's any reason to have Ed Orgeron leaving. I think that it's time to move on from Danny Etling at quarterback because he's been sad.
There's a reason why Purdue was bad. There's a reason why Purdue was bad when he was there.
You can't put it all on. There was some real bad coaching at Purdue.
Notice how Purdue's looking a little bit better now that Danny Etling's gone.
Notice how Purdue's looking a lot better because they got a new coach.
That too.
They went through a ton of bimbos before the new guy got there. I mean, come on. So I just had to go at you for that one. But Danny Etling has been really holding this team back.
You're talking about Jeff Brom, by the way, from Western Kentucky. That's the head coach of Purdue.
Yeah, he's been really good.
Our Purdue fans would have got all mad that we didn't know Jeff Brom's name, so I just wanted to throw it out.
I couldn't think of it at the moment. So, but here's the thing: is that Danny Etling has not been leading this LSU Tiger team like he should be. It just hasn't been happening. Now, is he the entire problem? No, he's not. But 4 turnovers forced by Troy on Saturday. Not good. And Danny Etling, another, I should say, I was going to say another interception. So he's just hasn't been good. Here's the thing. He hasn't necessarily been turning the ball over, but he also hasn't been getting it in the end zone. That's been a huge problem for LSU. They've been very slow offensively. They were down 10-0 at halftime. They were down at one point in the third quarter, 17-0. Right? Am I right or am I wrong, or was it 10-7 and then 17-? No, they were down 17-0 and then 17. It's just so bad right now for LSU because there's not anything that's going right for them. When they lost to Mississippi State a couple of weeks back, I thought, okay, that's not good. You guys just got absolutely blown out 37-7, but you also were on the road at Mississippi State. They played really, really well. Okay, you take that one on the chin, and then you move on. But then you go and you play Syracuse, and Syracuse was able to be in the game against you. You were slow against Syracuse.
A struggle win.
Now, let me tell you, they were up 14, LSU, up 14-3 at halftime. You think, okay, they're up at least at halftime, but it's the Syracuse Orange. I mean, you're not playing, another team from the SEC. You're not playing a quality opponent. You're playing Syracuse. And then Syracuse scores 16 points in the third, 7 points in the fourth. You beat them, but only 35-26. And it's just, there's not been enough going right for LSU. And quite honestly, their defense has not been all that great. And their offense just has been slow. And they need somebody else other than Danny Etling, who did get injured this past week. But now you've got on the road to Florida. You've got Auburn coming into your house the week after that. It's not getting any easier for you, LSU.
Here's the thing. And I know that you said no, they should not. And I'm going to kind of agree with that, but I have to. I have to agree with that. And the reason why I have to is, without the fact that I'm going to give you guys in a little bit, I would say Ed Orgeron should not survive this season. I know that we've got the rest of the season to go, but if it continues on this trend, shouldn't survive the season.
Why?
Why? Because I'm saying if it continues on this trend, you lose more games, you lose to Troy. Here's why I'm agreeing with you, Brandon. Here's why I'm saying you don't fire Ed Orgeron. Because if they were to fire Ed Orgeron right now, you know how much money they would owe him? $12 million they would owe him $12 million as a buyout. Then they would owe him, or minus the compensation they've already paid. So they'd pay $9 million. They'd minus 3 to that 12. They'd pay him $9 million just to buy him out. Just keep him. Just keep him at this point. Because LSU, when you look at it, yeah, you guys are bad right now, and I say bad because you just lost to Troy. But the weird thing is, when I look at the recruiting for LSU, you guys didn't have a bad recruit. You didn't have a bad recruiting class coming into this year. You were 7th in the nation with 24 total recruits. Yeah, most of them were 4-star guys. You didn't have 6 5-stars like Alabama, 5 5-stars like Ohio State, 3 5-stars by Georgia. You only had 1 5-star recruit. But still, to be a top 10 recruiting class is pretty darn good. Then in 2016, the class before Ed Orgeron came in, they had 27 total recruits. They were the number 2 class, right behind Alabama. So that class that came in last year, they're now sophomores. The class that came in this year, they're freshmen. I would at least give Ed one more year to prove himself, because I know that you guys are panicking. And when I say you guys, I'm talking to the LSU faithful out there that are listening to us. I know you're panicking. And last year 2 years ago. No, it was last year, 2016. It was 6-2 is what Ed Orgeron went, 4-2 in the conference. That's the only games he played 8 games with the Tigers. This year, 3-2, he's 0-1. But that Mississippi State game, Mississippi State was good, and they kind of showed us that Mississippi State team was one to be reckoned with. Now, they went up against Georgia and then Auburn and did not look like that same Mississippi State team. But LSU, I would at least give, the buyout is part of it. I wouldn't want to pay him $9 million just to let him walk. Unless I know for sure I can bag a guy like Chip Kelly. Not saying that Chip Kelly's the guy they should go at, but a guy like him that I can bring in and say, I'm confident in this guy. He's a top head coach. Kids are going to want to come play for him, and we can build a program around him. Otherwise, keep him. Let him get to next year. Your class that was number 2 in 2016, let them be juniors with Ed Orgeron. Let these kids that are now freshmen be sophomores and work that class. Let us see what he can do with his guys when they get to junior, senior year.
Exactly, which is why I'm really surprised that you would say after this one season to fire him if things went on this road. And now let's remember, they're working with a new head coach, Ed Orgeron. I mean, this is his first full season with LSU. They're working with a new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. And, remember, Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator for, was it Pitt? Was it Pitt last year that he was the offensive coordinator with that beat Clemson?
Yeah, because Pitt did beat Clemson last year.
And he was the offensive coordinator for Pitt and was able to do that. And Ed Orgeron really liked what he saw from Canada, one in that game and then in many others. And now he's kind of having Canada simplify some of the shifts in the offense. And maybe if he does that, things will get better. But I know people will say, and they'll look at the team stats and say, okay, well, in points against, we're at 19.4 points against. That's 31st in the league. And people would say, well, that's not that bad. You said our defense hasn't been that good. Well, let's look at the last 3 games in that stretch. Your defense has given up 37 points, 26 points, 24 points, and you've lost 2 of those 3 games. Your defense obviously is not coming up and getting the big stop. There were things that could have gone much better in that Mississippi State game. That's not all defense. Clearly, you only scored 7 points. That's offense too. That's why I think Danny Etling, has he been the worst player that I'd ever want on my team? No. But has he just been very mediocre? Hasn't really jump-started this offense, hasn't done anything. That's why I feel it's time to move on from him. And then in the Syracuse game, again, slow. There's you should have beat Syracuse by a solid 20 to 30 points. And then Troy. Troy had that game from the beginning, and the offense wasn't able to do anything until the very end. I mean, you go into that final quarter, you go into the fourth quarter, and you're down 24-7, and then you are able to get 2 touchdowns right at the end. You weren't in it. You were playing catch up the entire time. So this LSU team there's so many pieces that aren't right with this team right now. I just don't think that getting rid of Ed Orgeron is going to be your answer. Like I said, the guy's been there for 5 minutes. He hasn't been able to get anything really. I mean, if you fired him now, it'd be the dumbest thing you could do. If you fire him after 1 season, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense either, because you basically put him in the spot, said, Ed, you got the keys to the kingdom. We have all the faith in you. The fan base is behind you. We love you. Players love you. All this stuff. After 1 season of bad football, we don't like you. We're taking this away. Keys are ours. Give them back. You can't come back. We're changing the locks. All this stuff. That would be just so stupid and a complete reversal of what things were supposed to be like at the beginning of this season.
Here's the thing I want to throw out there, and somebody listening, if you're an LSU fan or you want to fact check us, because this just hit my noggin. So that 2016 recruiting class that I mentioned, I wonder how many of them are still with LSU. Because the thing that I'm thinking about is, did any of them leave because they would have been coming in? So the 2017 class, right now we're in the 2018 class. That's the class that's being recruited right now. The 2017 class came in this year. The 2016 class came in before last year. So that 2016 class came in thinking that Les Miles was their head coach. Les Miles gets fired after 4 games of the year after the 18-13 loss to Auburn at Auburn. I wonder if, I'm now thinking about that while recording this, how many of those 27 are still there from that number 2 recruiting class, and if any of those major ones left LSU because they're like, well, fuck this, I want to play for Les Miles, not Ed Orgeron over there. But I want to ask this, and this is kind of a side question to it. Do you think that LSU, looking back on it now, not even a year later, well, actually technically a year later, a little over it, were they a little bit too reactionary to fire Les Miles after that Auburn game? Because you look at it, and that team, even with Ed Orgeron, did go 8-4 last year, and now this year we're still seeing early on an LSU team that after 5 games of the year has lost 2 games. They've lost 2 games, the same amount of games they lost last year. The only difference is last year's games were to maybe better quality of opponents when you lost to Wisconsin by 2 on a national, like a neutral site, and you lost to Auburn by 5.
I'll be honest with you. I still go back to that whole season with Les Miles last season, and they were looking for reasons to get rid of him. Mm-hmm. They didn't want him anymore.
Yeah.
They didn't want him there anymore. They felt like they had gotten too complacent. They felt he had gotten too complacent. They didn't feel like he really wanted to win. I feel like the brass at LSU believed that if they went in a different direction, that they'd be able to be competitive and win right away. Mm-hmm. And that's silly. I mean, that's silly because, I mean, you had one of the best and one of the craftiest minds in college football, and you thought that you were going to be able to do better than that, and then, turn things around like lickety-split like that. Well, that's just usually not how it works.
Yeah.
So what they did is they went and they got this more LSU guy, if that makes sense, and they felt like his personality would be better. They felt that people could rally around him, fan base could rally around him, all this stuff. And now this fan base that did rally around Ed Orgeron for his interim last year, and then at the beginning to start this year into the offseason and everything, that same fan base at LSU that rallied around him, that was ready, that was happy to welcome him in, is now calling for his job just 5 games into this season. No, LSU hasn't looked good. They're 3-2. But why would you want to fire the guy right now? You'd just be jumping through head coach after head coach. How is that going to help anything? It's not going to. How about we look at the players on the field right now? How about we try and change things around? How about we light a fire under these players right now? And that is probably on Ed Orgeron. But he needs to light a fire under these guys to get them performing and up for these games. I don't know how you don't get up for Troy on it's homecoming. I mean, how, I should take that back. I know how you don't get up for Troy, but how do you not get up for Troy on your homecoming, on your field, and you lose? You lose to Troy 24-21, and I'm not trying to say that Troy is the worst program that I've ever seen in the history of programs, but you're Troy. LSU. You're LSU. It's your homecoming. You should be just going. But I think that is really just a shame that people, how it does happen that quickly, how the turnaround can be that quick. But Christian Lacouture, a defensive tackle for LSU, they were talking with him this week, and he said on fans calling for LSU head coach Ed Orgeron to be fired, quote, "I think it's disrespectful. I think it's absurd." End quote. And then he goes on to say that, a very, very passionate defense of his head coach and saying that, quote, "Coach O is a guy that's putting everything into this football program. You can't blame him. It's us. We didn't execute. He had a great game plan for us this week. I wouldn't want anybody to blame Orgeron. Blame it on us. It's us." End quote. So you've got a leader on the field there that is standing up for his head coach, who's saying that it's not him necessarily. It's we need to be doing a better job performing. He gave us a great game plan. We drew up a great game plan. All we needed to do was execute it, and we could not do it. And basically that's what I'm trying to say is that right now, I don't think it's on Orgeron. I think it's on these players that need to step up and get the job done.
Well, and I mean with Troy, the thing I want to speak with them is they're no pushover. They're a team that last year at Clemson only lost by 6 points. I know that they scored a touchdown, I believe, to pull within 6 with about 44 seconds left, but that was a closer game than many people expected. That was number 2. Clemson, by the way, last year, the same team that won the national title just a year ago. But I feel like with LSU, I'm in a tricky spot because do I feel like, if you ask me, do I feel like Ed Orgeron doesn't deserve a shot? I would say no. I do believe he deserves a shot because of what he was able to do at the end of last year. Like after going 2-2, he pulled them to a winning record. However, if you asked me, is Ed Orgeron the coach to bring LSU to the next step? I would say no. No, he's not. He's not the next one to bring them to the next step. And I wonder if LSU is going to, at the end of the season, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out, but it's going to be also interesting to see what they do. Do they go after a guy like Chip Kelly? Do they, let's say, I'm just throwing names out there at this point. Let's say a Butch Jones gets fired and they like him better, or a Brian Kelly gets fired from the Fighting Irish and they like him better. Hell, what if Kevin Sumlin gets fired and they go, hey, you know what? We like him better than we like Ed Orgeron after the season that we just played. It's going to be interesting to see who's out there and who maybe LSU tries to reel in depending on how this season goes. However, I think right now hitting the panic button, go ahead and just relax. A little Aaron Rodgers, RELAX. Relax. Relax, Tiger fans. No one expected you to win the SEC this year. No one expected you to go to the college football playoff. Just hope for a winning record. Hope for a bowl game. Hope you win that bowl game. And I know that sounds like, wow, Ricky, you're just disrespecting my program. At least you guys have a shot to go to a bowl game. Mine doesn't. Illinois is not going to a bowl game anytime soon. I mean, we just today I get a text that Jeff George Sr. is not, or Jeff George Jr. Yeah, Jeff George Sr. is going to be the starting quarterback for Illinois. But that's what they should be. That should be the goal now is, hey, finish the year the best we can. Try to get that bowl game. Get that bowl game. Get that extra game for our seniors, for our guys, and just try to play every game like it's your last game and try to just get the W. But I do think Ed Orgeron does deserve a chance. I just don't think he's the guy that brings LSU over that next step. Any last thoughts that you have over there before I pitch it over to these guys?
No, I'm good.
This is where you guys come in. Let us know down below. What do you guys think? Should LSU move on from Ed Orgeron? Would you want him fired today? Do you think he'll get fired at the end of the season? Let us know what you think about anything with LSU down below in the comment section.